Who are you? Yep, good to go. Well, kia ora all from the beautiful Queenstown Lakes. Thanks for joining and welcome to our Home for Healthier Business webinar, Building Your Business in Queenstown Lakes. I'm Sharon Fifield. I work within the Economic Development team here along with Peter Harris. Give us a wave, Peter, and Huia Ackerman, and also Olivia Wensley, who's online from Startup Queenstown Lakes. We're here to facilitate and support new business and diversification in the Queenstown Lakes. Home for Healthier Business was launched earlier this year with the purpose of providing targeted support and resources to make it easier for team and business builders that are considering a move to the district. You probably all know of Queenstown Lakes as a great place to visit, and that will always be the case, but the last couple of years have seen some exciting growth in new industries such as tech, film and food. We're a district in diversification mode and have seen a number of business builders and entrepreneurs settle in the district and start to build their business, create new jobs and contribute to a buzzing new economy outside of traditional tourism, which we're known for. In addition, there's lots of other things underway. Over the last year, we've had some great support and recognition of this from central government, who have invested 20 million in underwriting diversification projects in the district, as well as another 22 million towards a research and innovation hub, which is currently under construction. So lots of exciting stuff happening. So in today's webinar, you'll meet some now locals who are here online, who have made the move themselves and can give you some insight around what this has meant for them based on their own experience. So just before we kick off, and I'll get the special guest to introduce themselves shortly, just for the attendees, we'll have time for a Q&A at the end. So if you have a burning question, pop it in the Q&A box, just whenever you think of it. And if you want to pose the question to a particular presenter, just pop their name beside it as well. And we'll ask questions to the presenters at the end. And also, just as you will have seen, the webinar is going to be recorded, so we'll make that recording available over the next day or so. So feel free to share it with anyone who you know who might be considering a move to the district. So enough from me. A very special welcome to our speakers, Justine Ross, Alex Worker and Jason Wilby. I'll let you all introduce yourselves. Alex, perhaps we'll start with you. Can you please just tell us a bit about yourself, your business, what drew you to Queenstown Lakes, and how have you found settling in here?
Thanks, Sharon. Kia ora tātou. Tāshang da jahao. Pleasure to be on this call. By way of introduction, I'm a Kiwi and I've spent about half my life in Asia Pacific and a little bit in the Americas. So I've only moved with my young family. I'm a dad of two young children going to remarkable primary school here, and my wife who's Panamanian, and we arrived in Queenstown Lakes at the beginning of 2021. So we've only been here now for kind of feeling like coming up a year, and just settling down into the community, really enjoying it. My background's with food. I spent a lot of time taking New Zealand food to the world, particularly into Asia. And now I'm back here with a vent towards food technologies. And I think Queenstown's actually a really interesting opportunity in this growing narrative around being the gateway to the world's purest food sourcing region. And so I think this part of the world is magic. And I think many already know, living in the region, how good the food is, how good the air is, how good the water is. And so I think part of my job and my responsibility over the next chapter is to make sure the kids have a good time, but to also help tell better food stories from the region, and to connect the region to its consumers around the world that really want to pay for the qualities of Queenstown, the Lakes region and Central Otago. My work, I wear hats and I kind of regard myself as a venture partner. So at the moment we're launching an American food tech company called Impossible Foods into Australia and New Zealand very shortly. Previously I was with them in Hong Kong and looking at their China strategy, and I can now do that work from Queenstown thanks to Zoom and essentially having decentralized teams now in different cities across New Zealand that can help get things done around COVID and the challenges of going up and down in levels. I'm also a venture partner in Newfish, and so we're working with Vaughan Mabee, Amersfield's top chef, who's our creative director, and we're fermenting a bunch of different types of seafoods into very expensive saucisson, French style of salami. So it's all about bluff, Stewart Island, native ocean ingredients, and then how to tell a better sustainable story from Aotearoa, New Zealand, and looking at exporting those saucisson. I'm also working with Central Otago folks on fruit wastage, and it's been amazing getting connected through QLDC to CODC, another acronym, but the council over on the other side near Cromwell, where recently they've embarked on a discovery around fruit loss and fruit wastage. And that's something I think that's absolutely an amazing opportunity for the region, where we talk our perfect fruit, our cherries to the world, but we don't really talk about the jams or the wastage and the nutraceuticals that come from those fruits. So we've started a company called Lilo Desserts that's looking about how you take fruit waste into tasty things. And then around that, I'm sitting on Te Hono, a steering committee that's focused very much on advancing New Zealand's food and fibre interests, with a focus on the region. And lastly, chairing a founders initiative called Future Food Aotearoa. And that is only been going for a year, but that's essentially saying, how do we get New Zealand food entrepreneurs going bigger in their aspiration, and then finding the resources and the partners and the capital around them to really change the narrative for New Zealand future foods. And I think there's a fantastic opportunity for actually basing FFA in Queenstown, really as an ideas accelerator. I think people come to Queenstown for the natural capital, to escape, to recharge, to disconnect. And founders are generally very busy people. So why not? And I think there's no better location than to bring them down here regularly, help them disconnect, recharge, but then also supercharge their aspirations and their next steps for business. So that's a little bit about me, very much around food, slowly getting involved in the community, but really enjoying it. It's not always easy in terms of making friends, and also just taking time to go slowly is something I've found that's really important, but really loving it and happy to talk more about my experiences, and happy to help anybody that's connected to food.
Awesome. Thanks, Alex. Well, that's pretty interesting stuff. Have you found, because I guess it's quite, well, it could have been seen as niche, what you're doing, especially in our district, have you found that you're meeting a lot of like-minded individuals in that industry, in the food space?
Yeah, absolutely. About a third of New Zealand's economy is connected to food. So it's essentially, we've seen, and we know the region's taken a hit on tourism and then education as a result of borders being closed. But food hasn't skipped a beat. If anything, it's growing, particularly our exports. And that's essentially cash coming back into New Zealand that keeps everybody, the wheels turning. So food's very relevant both to Aotearoa, but also to the region. If you kind of look at Queenstown, I think Queenstown's a fantastic food experience centre. It's really where you can showcase, tell stories, and connect globally. But, if you look then across the region into Cromwell and the fruits and the growers, and then you go south into Southland, where you've got a lot of farming, but then you've also got manufacturing and the ports, and then you've got both agriculture and the marine industry. There's a bunch of really interesting people, Ngāi Tahu and the iwi connections around protecting land and taking stories from land, I think are becoming very progressive and almost being interwoven into this real, true food story coming from Aotearoa, which allows us to distinguish and differentiate our provenance against brands coming out of France, Belgium, or Ireland. And in terms of people, you've got people that have retired from Auckland, whether it's Hubbard's, the cereals. You've got investors here doing viticulture, looking at regenerative farming, including one of our speakers on the table.
Yep.
A real range of people here, and I think what's so fun about Queenstown is that it's still small enough to allow for those personal connections rather than just business connections. And that's sometimes over a glass of wine or over a Ferg burger, pie or burger. That's when a real conversations happens around what you can do and what we can do next.
Yeah, cool. Hey, in the sort of promotion of this webinar, we talked about implementing heart offices versus head offices. So a lot of people may not know what that means. Can you explain what a heart office is?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. And I'll try not to be too fluffy, but I'll also put my interpretation over it. I think, looking at where life's moving, particularly with, enablers of technology and Zoom calls, we can actually start looking at more decentralized working systems where you might have a head office or a headquarters, and that could be in Auckland, or it could be a Singapore, or it could be a San Francisco. But the heart office idea to me is like, what else do you want to get out of your people, or what else do you want in your life around work? And so when you start exploring, the idea of energy, slowing down to speed up, being present, looking at the ideas of how do you design for serendipity and allowing for the right ideas to bubble to the top to really take your business forward. The idea of a heart office is very much intertwined with all of those things, where it's a space, a location, a place, but a group of people that are maybe coming to do work in a slightly different style. And so a lot of people now talk about natural leadership, getting out of the cities and getting into the mountains to actually do your best work. And I think the heart office really lends itself to that, where you're coming here for different reasons, with purpose, and you're probably getting as good a work done, but with different means and for different reasons. And so a heart office to me is very much the Queenstown opportunity, where you're putting yourself here to do really good work, but for quite different reasons. And that could be as much for your family as for your body, as much for your energy and getting out into the outdoors.
Cool. Good explanation. Love it. Thank you, Alex. Probably a good segue into you, Justine, because you are into the sustainable regenerative farming. So it'd be good to hear from you. Introduce yourself and tell us a bit about what drew you to Queenstown Lakes.
Well, Ata Maria, everybody. Thank you, Sharon. And Alex makes me feel incredibly lazy. So all I'm doing is basically looking at the pristine Lake Hawea and feeding lambs. So, and that's actually quite an intense thing to be doing. We've got 2 lambs, 2 pigs, and 16 dogs. So we're on Lake Hawea Station, which is New Zealand's first carbon certified farm. We're 2.5 times carbon positive, and we have moved from basically running around the bars of the world to selling booze to farming as activism, which may seem like quite a leap, but both of us are from farming backgrounds, my husband Jeff and I. And so when we looked across the country for a canvas, really, for us to take our environmental passion, and that's I should just qualify that also by just saying that's a passion that's been with us for about 20 years. We've been lobbying for the business case for the environment, so it's not a new thing, but the idea that we could bring our passion onto our own canvas was pretty compelling. And then we looked around the country, and I guess what we needed was also the type of stimulation that we were used to in terms of thought leadership, and we felt like the Queenstown Lakes area would have that, and we have found that to be true. And we needed, I guess, that sort of some access to the metropolitan things. And as Alex just explained, there's just such incredible food and amazing cultural experiences down here as well. So we already knew that. We'd already been holidaying here. But to make the move, it takes a lot of courage, and anyone who's considering, making a big move for their families and their businesses is a brave person. And I think that's how you enjoy the best of life, really, is by, taking risks and trying things. And so that's what we did. We have been in the Queenstown Lakes district for 3 years. We've actually lived in Wellington, Christchurch, Auckland and overseas. So I feel, and then we actually moved to Dunedin as a wee segue on our way to Queenstown Lakes. And we've arrived here on the shores of Lake Hawea. And I think we've absolutely found home for ourselves and our two sons. Our eldest son is actually doing his PhD out of Deakin University in Melbourne in carbon, and he would be based in Melbourne, but he isn't at the moment because of the COVID situation. Our youngest is earning a degree in hopping around the bars of Dunedin, and it's just quite wonderful for us to be able to bring them both home to our little slice of paradise here on Lake Hawea. I think, if you asked me what it's like to have, young adults in this part of the world, is there enough? Well, I think that it's incredibly compelling socially for them here. There are so many progressive young thinkers here. So our eldest son, who isn't able to be with his cohort in Melbourne, is connecting with extraordinary young minds here all the time, building a business, and seems to be able to do all of that remotely. So it's wonderful to watch him at close range grow his businesses, work on his studies, and also to be able to bring our young son home from Dunedin, our younger son home from Dunedin, to enjoy all the recreational pursuits that are on our doorstep here. So from a family perspective, it's just amazing. From a quality of life perspective, well, we've had a life of contrasts, and I think that for us, from a wellness perspective, it's been incredible. We've just spent 2 nights overnight up the Hunter Valley. The mountains are just on our doorstep, and it's been incredible to be able to have such access to all the recreational pursuits that we love, whether it's hiking or mountain biking. And to do that in an environment which selfishly has the ability to, go into beautiful restaurants. Wanaka is, blessed to have some really incredible new entries in food. Ark and Scroggin, just 2 incredible options that are probably new to everybody here. And then so we can eat well, we can party, we can be in the mountains, and most of all, we can put our heads down and grow our business, which is Lake Hawea Station. 40% of New Zealand's land mass is sheep and beef farms. So we feel if we can demonstrate by example that, they can sequester more carbon than they emit, that regenerative farming is better for the planet, that farming as a solution to the climate crisis is possible, and we can do that with actual boots on the ground, we can prove it, then that's really what we're here to do. And I will also say that have we missed our people? Well, not really, because they come here. I mean, current situation notwithstanding, this is a really, it's an epicenter for everyone for, passing through. So whether we want to talk to venture capitalists or whether we want to talk to people who have great experience in the sector that we're recently new to, all of those people are moving through here all of the time. And then our friends and family, are blessed to be regulars here. So we don't feel cut off. We have extraordinary thought leaders to access, and we have the recreational and wellness aspect that everybody knows this region is all about. So look, we're stoked to be here. It's been an amazing 3.5 years. It's never perfect. It's never, nothing when you're transitioning in life is ever as you think it's going to be, but there's been incredibly delightful surprises, some challenges, and that's life, isn't it? But by and large, would we be anywhere else on the planet? Absolutely not. So yeah, that's where we are.
Cool. Thanks, Justine. We're lucky to have you here. And also, I guess, from our perspective, we're very lucky, I guess, that, friends and family do want to come and visit us. So we're not feeling too far away. I'm going to try Ark and Scroggin because I hadn't heard of them. So thanks for the reco. I had a question for you as well. What did your sons say when you said you were going to move and buy this Lake Hawea station? How did they react? What was their perception?
Yeah, look, that's a great question. So there was excitement about the concept of having, they're both huge outdoor recreators, so they were excited with that. However, and by the way, we've been visiting Queenstown all the time and just begging people, or the Queenstown Lakes area, and begging people to borrow their farms so that we could take the boys to do stuff because they're that way inclined. So from that aspect, they were excited, but if I'm completely honest, it was mortifying to bring a 14-year-old out of their world, their comfortable community of people and friend group, and bring them and transport them down here. Our eldest son was already at university, but still he wasn't then going home with all his cohort. He was coming here to be with us, and he didn't have a peer group. And our youngest son, I will say that the first sort of 6 to 8 months was difficult, made a heck of a lot easier because the people are really inclusive. They give you the time of day. It's less hurried and lots of in-home entertaining. So we found that we were brought into people's circles by a really conscious effort on their part to include us, which was beautiful, but still not without its challenges. And here's the thing, I think your children learn resilience through maybe the sports field, through unforeseen and difficult circumstances within their family units, or they use it or they acquire it from a big change that doesn't go their way, and then they learn that they can adjust. They learn resilience, and I've seen that in our children, and particularly our youngest son, who has learnt that he can do hard things. And to quote Glennon Doyle, who I'm a bit of a fangirl of, we have to walk towards hard stuff. We have to learn that we can do it. And that is what this move achieved for really all of our family. And we've come out the other side feeling really empowered by that. And I think particularly for my kids, I'm very glad that they know that they can move into a new community and they can become part of it with their good values and their great instincts, that they can find their people and they can have a beautiful and happy life. And I'm absolutely thrilled with Gabe's cohort now, and the families that we're getting to hang with. So look, cool. Yeah, it's gone well.
Thanks so much, Justine.
Thanks for the
That's
question.
Really good. Thank you. Jason, welcome. Over to you. The same for you, I guess. Introduce yourself and how did you end up here?
Thanks, Sharon. Kia ora koutou. So yeah, I'm Jason, originally from the UK, as you might be able to tell from the accent, and I spent a good maybe getting on for 15 years in Australia. So I moved to England when I was quite young, where I met my partner, Chris. And these days we've been living just outside of Queenstown in Arthur's Point for about 5 years now. We're both originally from the country, and we love cities, but we sort of something tweaked for us a few years ago, and we realized that cities are brilliant, but actually we'd love to find a way to reconnect with nature. How could we find a way to work from a more rural base? Perhaps we didn't have the words for it back then, but to coin Alex's phrase, we were probably in search of our heart office, really, and trying to find a way where we could do great work, but also find a way to work from that rural base. And I think the great thing is, I come from a technology and a product background, and I think the thing that continues or has amazed me, it was a leap of faith, but we haven't had to make any trade-offs. So we've been living here for 5 years now and continuing to do some of our best work. So it's been a move that's paid off very well for us. From a work background, I'm the co-founder of a business called Open, along with Jonathan Buck, who's based in Australia. We're a fintech operating in Australia, New Zealand, and just getting going in the UK as well. Recently closed a large funding round led by New Zealand's kind of leading VC fund, Movac. We're a tech-powered insurance company, so we're mostly kind of tech and product and kind of data engineering people on a mission to create what we describe the fastest insurance at the best price for the world. So we operate a car, home, and travel insurance business in Australia. We're launching in New Zealand in December this year with our brand Huddle, and as I said, getting into the UK as well. And we've got teams based in Sydney, the Sunshine Coast, which is in Queensland, just below Noosa, another kind of nice destination. Auckland, London, and of course Queenstown, where I've been based for the last 5 years. And pretty much since we founded, we founded in Australia, and I moved, we relocated here almost the same year. And during that time, we've grown from a team of 5 overall to we're nudging on 70 now, and kind of growing up to about 100 over the next couple of months as well. So quite phenomenal growth. And I think we've grown the business, doubled revenues, all those sorts of things that I think a few years ago at the outset, you kind of go, oh, is this going to work? Can I really kind of base myself in Queenstown and grow a tech business? And that was at the time when, I thought we'd be, or when I was flying backwards and forwards a lot. But I think, COVID's kind of just proven actually we can do incredible things remotely as well, and remain connected to people remotely as well. People often say, how did you make the move to Queenstown? And I think the honest answer was it was a bit of a whim. We had this kind of desire to have this rural lifestyle. We were looking around in Australia about how we could kind of commute in and out of Sydney. But after we'd also been visiting Queenstown for about 10 years and sort of knew how easy it was to get in and out of. We knew the place, we loved the place, and we loved the kind of connection to that we sort of found with land when we were here. And we had a drink, as you do in Queenstown, in a bar, and we kind of had this crazy idea that how different would it be to swap 2 hours a day in the car in Sydney for a couple of hours a week, potentially flying between Auckland and Sydney. And that's kind of what got the ball rolling, and we've never looked back. As I said, we've had a heck of a lot of growth, but I think Queenstown is such an exciting place for us. It's rural lifestyle plus world-class biking, hiking, snow sports, and you've got I guess nightlife, and a foodie scene and everything else that that competes head to head with most of the cities in the region as well. So yeah, very excited to be here.
Great. Thank you, Jason. I've got a question for you, and it's around, so you're talking about your team growing to 100 soon. There's a bit of a common misperception that skilled talent in Queenstown is hard to find. I guess that's the case, across New Zealand and even globally as well. How have you found finding talent here? What are your realities? Can you talk us a bit through that?
Yes, sure. So the short answer to that question depends a lot on what talent you're looking for, I think, and what sort of what business you have. But I think for us, our talent strategy has been, we're a remote first organization, so we have this sense of hubs, as I mentioned earlier, across 2 in Australia, 2 in New Zealand. We tend to sort of over-index in some of those hubs. In Sydney, we have more of our engineering and product talent, and the Sunshine Coast is kind of a customer operations center. And then in New Zealand, we've tended to kind of over-index in growth. So we've got some brilliant returnees, Kiwis coming back from the UK with amazing experience, plus people that have joined us with experience in New Zealand as well. But that tends to be more on the sort of, in New Zealand, we've tended to over-index a little bit more on the sort of creative kind of marketing and kind of growth skill sets, communication skill sets. And I think in part because that talent's become available, but in part because we've sort of let some of these kind of these hubs form naturally, and talent kind of attract talent. I think coming back to, and we've got our team in New Zealand split between Auckland and Queenstown. I think the realities of recruiting in Queenstown, for us, it's not something we sort of heavily preference. We're not saying people have to be in Queenstown. They can work from any of our hubs. It's amazing, though, the cut through we get with recruitment when we talk about the fact that you can work from some of the world's best destinations. And Queenstown is something that pretty much anybody in our sphere seems to have some sort of connection or awareness of, and I think that's been incredible for us, incredible help for us to attract talent, and then for the people that are, we've had people that relocated from Auckland to work with us down here because it's an option and it makes so much sense for their family or their life stage, or purely their desire to kind of, as Justine said, eat well, party well, and be in the mountain. I think we're able to cover, I guess, the full spectrum there. And just a quick comment on talent in Queenstown. It's still not millions of people, right? So it's a different kind of dynamic when you think about recruitment and you think about talent, if you compare it to Auckland or Sydney. But I think perhaps Sharon, you got some stats on this, but I think it's pretty incredible when you do break down the population of the people that are here. I was chatting to a friend who's running a SaaS business here. He's just recruited a new CTO who happened, looking across the globe, right? And he's found a CTO happened to be based in Queenstown, running a team of 60 engineers, actually remotely, most of them in the UK. And he's just been based here for the last 5 years, and he's thinking, actually, he's here, but his heart sort of is not here, because he wants to have that kind of connection with people and not just be working remotely. So you'll often find incredible talent, I think, in the district, and people that are perhaps looking to work not just remotely, but also have some teams and some physical presence in the district as well.
Great, thanks, Jason. You've probably already answered this question, but I was going to ask you how having your business based in Queenstown has actually impacted your brand. I think you've pretty much covered it off. Is there anything else you want to say there?
It definitely has an impact, and I think Alex talked to this earlier as well. I think Queenstown and this region has an incredibly strong brand. I think whether it's for food or for travel, but also it's a very desirable place to be. I think during the different lockdown cycles, and obviously spending a lot of time with team and partners in Australia at varying stages of lockdown, I felt quite strong survivor guilt quite a few times. I'd almost be embarrassed to say that I'm working from Queenstown. But of course, it would come up in conversation, and just people are so positive. Everybody wants to sort of break that down and understand, how is that possible? And people are very kind of keen to either to sort of, I guess, work through that and say, is that something that's viable for me and my family? But also, we're an insurance business, so partnerships are key for us. We've hosted events down here when we could earlier in the year, and it's an incredible, I guess, asset within the kind of brand mix as well.
Well, can I just add to that?
Yes, sure.
When we had 42 Below, the vodka that we founded, we ran the Vodka World Cup in Queenstown for 8 years, and so we brought 42 of the hottest bartenders in the world and the industry media, and we brought them down to Queenstown, and they had a week of bungee jumping and competing to be the winners of the Vodka World Cup. And what that did is it built incredible relationships through the relaxed atmosphere and the experiences that you have down here. I think from a business connectivity perspective, there's a real deepening of relationships that happens in the right environment. And I think that certainly, we were in a very competitive sector then, and you've got our competitors were dropping $200,000 to own a well pour in a bar in New York. And we would say, well, and they would literally reject the well pour and the $200,000 because, their mates were 42 Below because they had such a good time when they were down in Queenstown. And so we built global relationships that really helped us create foot soldiers all around the world. And that was done, as I say, through an extraordinary experience and a beautiful environment. And we're now finding that with our current business initiatives down here. There's a relaxed nature to the types of discourse that we're experiencing here. We'll meet we have an office in Lake Hayes. We'll meet there, and there's a casualness to it that is conducive to faster friendships, more, I guess, you access people's integrity better through experiences in the right type of environment. And I think that this environment plays very well for fast good friends, quality friends.
Awesome. Thanks, Justine. I remember that vodka World Cup, actually. Good times and good place for it. Okay, so I think that's great. I think we'll open up the questions now. I actually got one for you, Jason. What infrastructure is there that supports business in the district, such as broadband, but shared workspaces, which you can probably speak to really well?
Sure. So I think the broadband's very good.
Yeah, it is.
It surprises me how good it is. I think yeah. So I think we haven't come across any impediments, and there's people that sort of share our workspace that are kind of doing high frequency trading and kind of complex things in Europe. There's lots of businesses down here who would be very kind of very, I guess, high expectations on things like connectivity, and that's certainly not an impediment or not an issue for doing business down here. But I think more broadly, there is this incredible kind of curve, I think, at the moment in terms of the uplift in I guess, infrastructure investment like broadband, like most buildings now have satellite and backup links and things like that available too, but also on the soft infrastructure as well. And I think it feels like every week there are more and more people coming to choose to base themselves here in Queenstown and do work from here. And I think that's you're seeing people kind of I guess seize the opportunity to then sort of service the needs of new people that are arriving. My partner Chris created Mountain Club, which is a community of entrepreneurs and creatives, and it's a co-working space. They've got a private bar and a lounge, and it just sort of goes on and seems to kind of expand and evolve based on what people want. But I think what's really exciting is it almost feels like every week there's a new offer emerging. There's brilliant spaces like Bad Company in Wanaka as well, and there's the new government innovation centre that's coming down the line. So I think the pace of change is continues to accelerate, and I genuinely mean it. I feel like every week or month there's something new opening that's here that makes doing business easier, or certainly more enjoyable.
Cool, thanks. Does anyone else have anything to add to that? Alex or Justine? Well, Jason, you've covered it.
I actually use the Mountain Club.
Yeah.
The space Jason's talking about, and I think again, I used to work out of WeWorks around the world, and I think the Mountain Club's as probably the best space that I've been into, both for kind of like equipment, infrastructure, but then also that going back to that idea of designing for serendipity. It's very easy to have a casual conversation and then do some work. And then get out for a run and go for a bike ride. Yeah. I think maybe I'll just jump in quickly to kind of give if there's kind of like young parents out there or looking to make a move from a city and trying to work out what that routine looks like. I think it's easy to gloss over some of the other advantages to the region, including, having an international airport when it's working.
Yeah.
Is a real plus. I live 7 minutes from the airport. But it doesn't feel like I live in the airport and I don't listen to any planes going overhead. I can drop off my kids to school 2 minutes from the airport on either side, and then I can get to my office within 5 minutes. So essentially that loop every morning and in the afternoons is taking kind of door to door 20 minutes. So if you're kind of looking at how effectively to use time, you can then drop the kids off, and before you go into the office, you can get for a run around the lake. So you're kind of clearing your head space before you go in, and then talk to, again, New Zealand time zones. If you're dealing with Americans, you can really be well placed in the morning. Then you can kind of have lunch. And then in the evening when Asia's coming online, you can deal with them and get home, do all your kind of your family stuff, and then pick up again if you choose to. So I think it's some of these qualities to both to New Zealand, but, then specifically to the region here, are very enviable. And then the only last thing I'd say is I spent a lot of time going through different cities, and I'd always follow the arc of a city energy, or like how much opportunity there feels like, particularly in the everyday conversation. And I think New Zealand's is going through a super normal opportunity. And I think Queenstown in this region is almost kind of like the tip of the spear. So if there's anybody kind of out there looking just to kind of roll the dice or to kind of move with uphill energy, the time to be here is actually, it's a really good one. And it feels that there's a lot of people in a similar space looking to do new things or looking to do collective things together. And I think that's a really good thing, because again, when you're in other spaces that are kind of a bit more downwards or more of a spiral, or doesn't feel like there's more, restrictive energy, it's harder to kind of feel the opportunities. Whilst there's so many here, the issue is about where you focus and fundamentally what you get behind.
Cool. Agree. And that actually leads me, and this is a question for you all. If we've got people listening in that are considering bringing a business to Queenstown Lakes, they might be pretty nervous about it or not know where to start. What advice would you give them?
Oh, well, I'll start there.
Okay.
We always thought with our business moves, we wish we'd gone harder, faster, sooner. So I think, life isn't for the faint-hearted. I think, you've just got to get on and move. Just keep moving. If you're even considering it, then what you're doing now isn't fully working.
Yeah.
So know that. And then I think, gosh, I mean, I can wholeheartedly endorse everything Alex just said. I think that the energy of this place is quite remarkable. I mean, I'm speaking more from a Wanaka and Lake Hayes perspective, but also we dive into Queenstown a lot. The energy is remarkable. The people are here, but also, and this is evidenced by your work, Sharon, the council's with you. And that's quite amazing to have people that you can actually, at a local body level, access to talk through the possible support. It's remarkable. So I don't think anyone's going to let you fail if you're heading down. And I think that lifestyle wise, most of all, if you're well and healthy and in an environment where you're not in a commute disaster and you're not, barely seeing your family because of pressure and commuting in an intense urban environment, then gosh, it is a great, easy living, and therefore you can be more productive and build your business faster and well supported. So look, I have no need to sell the area. We don't particularly want terribly many more people here, but what I do believe in is entrepreneurial spirit, and I do believe in supporting growth businesses, and I think that New Zealanders need that, and I can't think of a better place to do it.
Cool. Thanks,
so
Justine.
Get started. Get going. Just do it. Yeah.
Jump right in.
Jump right in. Otherwise, don't wait.
Jason, Alex, anything to add to that?
I just think that, Justine mentioned it as well. I think there's a lot of support networks out there. So obviously, Sharon and I guess the sort of economic development team. There's a lot there to obviously to tap into. There's even I was surprised that the chamber in Queenstown actually gets quite an energetic, engaged chamber, and the Chamber of Commerce, they sort of open up for drinks, and they open up all these amazing venues. You'll find yourself in Gibson Valley sipping nice wines and champagne on a sunny afternoon, at a really open and genuinely open, not intimidating kind of networking event, and you'll find that it's quite it is really still a smallish town, right? And so you'll quickly get to meet people, and you'll quickly get introductions, and everyone's pretty open and keen to support where they can. So I think both in the formal side, Startup Queenstown Lakes as well, there are these support networks, but there's some brilliant informal ones as well. The Chamber, even Mountain Club and some of the other kind of co-working groups and spaces around, brilliant places to meet people and find out the lay of the land and kind of find some connections as you're getting set up.
Absolutely. Alex, anything to add?
I think the only other point I'd add is that I've actually been pleasantly surprised by the diversity of the different types of people in the regions. I think there's kind of like this, this legacy narrative of certain regions being where Kiwis like to go, and then Queenstown was always for the international tourists that wanted to come in for the week. But actually being based here now, there's just a various and a variety of people from like different backgrounds, from different kind of nations, with different perspectives, with different means, but all here for kind of certain types of purpose. And so I actually think the region's going through quite an interesting kind of like growing up phase. And so there's a point around how many people are too many. But I'm personally very optimistic and very bullish on bringing in, more people with more skills, with more energy and enthusiasm just to do really good stuff in the region. And I think there's now like a changing narrative where, pre-COVID, tourism and property were kind of like the plays, and they shaped a lot of the profiles of the people. But increasingly now, you've got Argentines that came here on a working visa that have now learnt, through local Otago Polytech schools, how to work on regenerative farms. And now they're going out into Glenorchy looking to be, a chief botanist or a chief soil officer. So I really do kind of like urge and recommend to people, if you're thinking that you're coming down here for a certain type of person, you're going to be pleasantly surprised. And it feels like the region's going through a bit of a growing up phase. And that means that there's only more interesting types that will come here. So see it as
yeah, totally agree with that. I moved back here a few years ago, actually, after being away for 15 or so years. But when I was first here, I worked in tourism, and coming back, and just over the last couple of years, just to see how much Queensland has grown up, like you say, there's lots of new, talent and skills here, and new businesses opening. It's a really exciting time to be here. So that's, great. Totally agree. Any questions? Any more questions? Well, one here for all of you, actually. If you are looking for talent locally, where would you start? Where's the best place to find local team members? How do you find people that are already on the ground? Is it word of mouth? Are there recruitment agencies you would use? Mountain Club, perhaps they're there?
Just a couple of recent experiences. So most of our talent are on LinkedIn, so we can. Not many people put Queenstown on their LinkedIn status is the experience we found though. But that's quite interesting. But we've worked. We have an internal recruiter now, and there's a recruitment company, Analog Recruitment, that we worked with, actually based in Wanaka, who've been really good for creative and tech talent. So they service all of New Zealand, but they happen to be based in Wanaka. So I'm happy to sort of share a recommendation or anything like that. But it's those are our kind of recent experiences.
Okay, great. I've actually got another question here for you, Jason, from one of the attendees, from PicPoc on the call, Tyrone, which is New Zealand's largest video game developer, as you probably know. We're looking at opportunities to set up a satellite studio somewhere in New Zealand. The main reasons for doing so are better housing and rental affordability than our HQ in Wellington, but obviously also being a strong base for longer term talent recruitment and offering a high quality of life. It sounds like most of your talent is doing remote work, but how have your team staff found housing and rental affordability and the cost of living in general in the region?
There's a good question, Tyrone. I think there's quite a bit of, I guess, it's a broad New Zealand conversation, isn't there, about housing affordability and other pressures, and Queensland definitely doesn't escape that. I think often compared to kind of Auckland sort of prices. I think most people that in our team and I guess in the network though generally talk about, I guess, there's always affordability pressures, but I think there's a value for money kind of proposition down here. The fact that you're getting, often for a comparable with a unit in Auckland, it's buying you a house with some land and a countryside and I guess the ability for kids to walk to school and all those sorts of things. So I think it's a very different proposition, but it's not I don't think there's a huge amount of evidence to suggest a lower cost proposition, but perhaps something that's creates value in other ways for the same spend. I do think though, I mean, it's interesting. There's a lot of projects, I think, looking at developing the kind of video game industry down here, I think one thing that we've seen is there's a really kind of strong creative skew in talent that we see in Queenstown, even in roles that are not necessarily primarily creative. I think the fact that people are opting, it's not an obvious choice, right, to live in Queenstown. It's not an easy choice to necessarily migrate and move from Sydney or Auckland or Christchurch. And so I think you kind of, it's interesting. You probably will find that you see a creative skew in the talent down here, which could be obviously advantageous.
Cool. Thanks, Jason. I think we're coming to a close now. That's all the questions. So I just wanted to close out by saying we're at the Economics, so Peter and Huia and Olivia, we're all here to help you. So if there's anything that you need or any support, Home for Healthier Business was set up really as a place for sort of resources and guidance, case studies of people who've made the move. So that's a really good first port of call. But otherwise, just get in touch with us directly. We're happy to help. We're happy to have a chat with you, connect you with some locals who will be able to help you. And even if you want to come to Queenstown Lakes, we'll meet with you and can make some introductions for you as well. This is the first of a webinar in a series for us, and we'll be running some more in the future. We're thinking the next one will be around mid-November, and we've had a lot of interest from tech companies, so we might have more of a tech flavour to that. I just want to say huge thank you, Alex, Jason, Justine, Olivia. Thank you so much for joining us today. Really great to hear your experiences, and great to have you here as in the district as now locals. So thanks so much for giving up time in your day, and thanks to everyone who has joined to listen in today. We'll make the recording available, so feel free to share it on. Thank you so much and have a good day. See ya.
Kia kite.